So all of this stuff came to a head in 1952 with President Truman, the seminal case of Youngstown Steel and Tube Company versus Sawyer. We're in the middle of the Korean War. Steel workers go on strike. President Truman's like, whoa. We need steel for the war effort. And Congress wasn't acting. And he said, I'm going to step in the breach. Go screw yourself. And he issued an executive order to seize the steel plants to make sure that they kept in full operation. Well, this was called an overreach. It went up to the Supreme Court. Truman thought, everyone on the bench is either someone that I appointed or my predecessor, who I used to be vice president with, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, put on the bench. So this should be in the bag. Well, guess what? Independent judiciary comes in and says 6-3 vote. Not so fast, my friend.
Not so fast.
And they struck down the executive order. There are rules that were put into place by the Supreme Court about when and how and all this other stuff, which are still kind of vague and are kind of vague guidelines. But everyone looks back to the Youngstown case for guidance if there is a court case about an executive order now. I will say, I told this to Lou before we started recording. The best part about executive orders in my research, I found out that after the Youngstown case came, and Truman was a little sore about the whole thing, Justice Hugo Black, who issued the opinion, who authored the opinion for the majority of the court, hosted a barbecue at his house in Alexandria, Virginia, or no, it was Arlington, wherever. And he invited everyone on the Supreme Court and the president to show up. Now think about it. You think that's going to happen now? Oh my God. Anyway, but it happened. And President Truman evidently, and I quote, is on record as saying, and Justice Black's first name was Hugo. Hugo, I don't much care for your law, but by golly, this bourbon is good.
You gotta love a good bourbon. I can't go wrong with that.
So I love President Truman, but we'll get to him at some other late when we start talking about the presidents, but that's a whole other thing. But anyway, the courts are there to put checks and balances, just like there are checks and balances with the executive on the legislative, with the veto power, et cetera, et cetera. But executive orders still kind of go out of control. And not every executive order is sued. And I'm not suggesting that there should be a suit about every one of them, but it's still an open question to a large degree.
I mean, and it's really, it comes down to a philosophical debate where, again, I think personally, while I understand the need for executive orders and to go into that breach, as Rob said, to sort of fill in the gaps when you need to, that I don't think that it's right for executive orders to be issued and ongoing.
Right.
That the executive order was meant to go to fill that gap, to go into that breach while something was being debated. And then once Congress debates it, to pass a law one way or the other. We're not doing that. And to have some of these things where no matter what your philosophy is, no matter what your, again, no matter what your political belief is, one way or the other, these executive orders like DACA, like other orders that have come into play, it's something where they weren't meant to be lasting, and that executive orders by design were only meant to last. My belief on it is to last during that presidency. And if it was something that's serious and that needy, Congress should act upon it. And if Congress doesn't take that up to act upon it, this is just my Lou's rant on it, Lou's belief on it, is that by nature, it should come to end at the end of that president's term. That you should not be able to affect an executive order that then burdens presidents going forward forever.